Thank you. Good morning. My name is Sonya Tinsley-Hook, and I am a member and lay minister here at UUCA, and I'm delighted to be able to spend time with you this morning. I want to talk to you about character strengths and what I have come to call strengths keeping, and why all of it even matters. But first, I want to talk to you about Ella Baker. If you don't already know who Ella Baker is, you are not alone. She was a driving force behind much of the success of the U.S. civil rights movements, advancing the cause of justice for Black Americans and all people for close to 5 decades. She worked alongside some of the most noted civil rights leaders of the 20th century, including W.E.B. Du Bois, Thurgood Marshall, A. Philip Randolph, and Martin Luther King Jr. She mentored many emerging activists, including Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, Diane Nash, Stokely Carmichael, Bob Moses, and she was the trusted elder and advisor for the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Because of all that she taught them about community organizing and finding and developing homegrown leaders in the local community, the student activist of SNCC gave Ella Baker the nickname Fundi, which is the Swahili word for teacher, or one who passes on a skilled craft to others in an apprenticeship style. Because of all that Ella Baker taught them about community organizing, they changed the very nature of the civil rights movement as we knew it. Because Ella Baker most often focused on developing the leadership of others instead of stepping into the spotlight herself, the far-reaching impact of her community organizing work often went unrecognized. But even if you think you don't know much about Ella Baker, if you've been paying any attention to any social justice movements that have taken place since the 1950s, then you not only have benefited from the lessons that she taught, but you will probably recognize some of her many eloquent words, which are still used whenever there is a need to inspire people to take action for the cause of justice. Give light, and people will find the way. Or here's another one. Until the killing of Black men, Black mothers' sons, becomes as important to the rest of the country as the killing of a white mother's son, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until this happens. Or, you don't see me on television. You don't see news stories about me. The kind of role I tried to play was to pick up pieces or put together pieces out of which I hoped organization would come. My theory is strong people don't need strong leaders. Now, we know Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was a tremendously strong leader, breathtakingly inspiring. But what gave the U.S. civil rights movement its tremendous power was the fact that thousands upon thousands of ordinary people risked their lives and their livelihoods to stand up for their own dignity and humanity. Through the tireless behind-the-scenes work of Ella Baker and the many organizers that she trained and mentored, these seemingly powerless people developed the personal agency to insist that their lives and their well-being mattered. Ella Baker thought it was essential to help every individual, especially those with the least amount of power, to believe in their own capacity to be leaders instead of waiting for someone else to come and rescue them. She thought it was critical to help people understand their own unique strengths and talents. Another one of my favorite Ella Baker quotes has come to be this one: Whatever interest I had was primarily for people who were living in given situations to realize that there was a strength they had within them, and by their combined efforts, they could do something about whatever their conditions were. Ella Baker had deep ambivalence about the role of charismatic leaders, and although she worked closely with Martin Luther King Jr. and admired and leveraged his ability to electrify a crowd with his speeches, her constant worry was that ordinary people would worship him as a leader or think that they too needed to be just as charismatic to be effective, instead of seeing the potential for leadership within themselves. She believed deeply in group-centered leadership and not putting your hopes in the leadership of one person, but in the collective strengths to be found within one's own community. Ella Baker was the embodiment of a type of person that I've come to call a strengths keeper. She used her strengths, her many strengths of hope, social intelligence, love of learning, leadership, love, fairness, definitely perseverance, to help others realize their own strengths. Strengths keepers initiate and sustain practices and relationships that help people remember the strengths they have inside themselves to make a difference and to create change. But let's pause here for a moment and talk a bit more about what character strengths are and why they matter. Character strengths are the positive ways that we think, feel, and behave. They are the inner resources we have for dealing with challenges and overcoming adversity. Using our signature character strengths and being valued for them is both energizing and essential to our well-being. We are also more likely to accomplish our goals and to persevere when we leverage our signature strengths. And researchers have determined that in order to experience a sense of calling and right fit in a role or activity, we need to be able to express at least 4 of our signature character strengths. Powerful information. Although we often think of using our strengths as a way to increase our personal well-being, the truth is that sharing these strengths with one another is absolutely critical for our collective well-being. Through working together and sharing, we are able to accomplish what none of us is equipped to do on our own. Some evolutionary psychologists have even speculated that these character strengths have evolved in humanity because they help us to cooperate, collaborate, and survive. Ultimately, at every single moment of our lives, we are asking for some combination of these character strengths from one another. As Ella Baker understood so well, in order for people to have a sense of agency and to believe that we have the power to stand up for ourselves and for justice, we have to believe in the strengths within ourselves and in the strengths of the people that we are marching and demonstrating and working alongside. It's hard to risk your life or your livelihood, or even just give up some of the small comforts of life if you don't believe that the people around you have strengths inside them worth fighting for and worth sacrificing for. When people are helped to see and understand the strengths within themselves and one another, they are better able to see their common humanity and how these strengths can be utilized in service of a cause. We are better able to see and to take on challenges alone or together. Challenges as basic as planning an event or a budget together, or challenges as tough as confronting systemic racism, navigating through a pandemic, or addressing climate change. Ella Baker believed in what she called spade work, and she taught all her organizing mentees to have faith in it too. In farming and gardening, spade work is the slow and patient preparing of the ground that must be done before anything can be successfully planted. And what Ella Baker meant by spade work involved going into a community long before any action was planned and getting to know people, developing solid and respectful relationships with them, building trust with people by sharing your own story, how you came to believe in your own strengths to make a difference, listening to their stories, showing them the strengths that they were already demonstrating in their lives, helping them to see behaviors and ways of being that they were taking for granted instead of seeing as sources of strength. Helping people believe that they already had the strengths inside of them to help bring a new world into being, to transform their dreams into plans and goals and strategies. In other words, strengths keeping. Now, left to our own devices, we often fail to remember our strengths, and we forget to pay attention to our strengths. It's human nature. And this is why we must intentionally be strengths keepers. The practice of strengths keeping is vitally important because using our strengths together is way too impactful to be left to chance. Recently, my daughter, Sophia, who has the signature strengths of creativity and leadership, because I had her take the survey, and so she's always initiating new projects that we should complete. So she texted her dad, Jeep, and myself a long list of projects she would like to get done in our house so that she can more fully enjoy her last 3 years at home before going off to college. One of these projects includes the creation of an outdoor entertainment area complete with a hot tub. She asked for us to consider giving her a budget to organize some of these projects on our collective behalf as a family, and ended her long list of ideas with the following words: I could definitely do everything on this list myself, maybe minus the concrete part, but I'm sure I could figure that out. Although this list overwhelmed me and immediately brought on the beginnings of a wave of anxiety, what gave me joy were those final words: I am sure I could figure that out. That is what it means to have agency and to have confidence in one's own strengths. To understand that you don't have to know how to do everything, but you have the strengths inside of you to figure it out. This is my wish for every child and for every human being. To understand, like our children's book from earlier this morning, that there are all kinds of ways to be smart. None of us are smart in every way, but all of us are indeed smart in some way, and in many ways. And the ways that each of us is smart, all of our strengths matter to our families, to our communities, and to our world. The late, great Dr. Chris Peterson, he was mentioned in the video, one of the two primary scientists, along with Dr. Martin Seligman, who led the team of researchers who developed the list of VIA character strengths, was famous for saying that all of positive psychology research could basically be summed up in 3 words: other people matter. Dr. Peterson wanted us to understand that we are primarily social creatures who only thrive through working together with one another. Other people matter to everything we need to accomplish and want to experience, and we must become more effective and efficient at seeing and summoning the goodness in one another. Everything depends on other people, And also in Dr. Peterson's words, we are all other people to someone. The irony is that we most often talk about strengths in light of what they do for us individually, but really the best thing that they do for us as individuals is improve the way we relate to and interact with other people. Ella Baker was known for asking, "What is our purpose here?" So what is my purpose in sharing this message about strengths and strengths keeping with you here today? If I had one wish for the outcome of this service, it would be that you would leave today thinking about what strengths you want to make sure you are sharing, but also what strengths are you encouraging in this community? And I want at least a handful of you to join me in cultivating a strengths-keeping culture within this congregation. We will be having some RE, religious education classes, on the topic of becoming strengths keepers in the not-so-distant future. And if you're visiting with us today, not that you can't join us here in this community, we would love that, but I also want you to leave here thinking about how you can start acting as a strengths keeper in your community. What can you do to help create an environment that helps people to recognize their own unique constellation of character strengths and that encourages them to contribute those strengths for the common good? Earlier, I asked you to write down some of the strengths that you thought might be your signature strengths, and if you haven't already done so, I would love for you to enter some of your signature strengths in the chat right now. Now take it a step farther, and start thinking about how those strengths are already being expressed in your life. But is there something more that you could do to express and share that strength with us in this beloved community? Sharing your strengths will make this place feel more like your home, and it will make this community stronger and better for all of us. If you would like to go ahead and take the online version of the VIA Character Strengths Survey, we're putting our UUCA VIA Character Strengths link in the chat, but please don't do it until after the service is over. It only takes about 10 to 15 minutes to do this evidence-based, scientifically validated survey of character strengths, and it's free. You can also go to viacharacter.org to find out lots of amazing research and articles about the science of character strengths in general, including many resources created by some of the world's foremost researchers and practitioners in positive psychology, like Dr. Ryan Nemec, for instance. And also a few things from yours truly, me. So for me, what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist is not just to focus on my own strengths for the purpose of living my own best life, or so that I can be the best version of myself. It means using my own strengths because they are the best resources and tools that I have inside of me to help create a world in which everyone can flourish. A world in which every one of us, no matter our race, socioeconomic background, gender identity or expression, age, religion, mental, physical, or sensory disabilities, national origin, in other words, all of us, every single one of us, is valued for our unique combination of strengths and helped to recognize and contribute them. As Unitarian Universalists, our very first principle is our affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. We believe in the strengths inside every single person. Knowing my strengths and having an awareness of my strengths helps me to see what is right with me and what I have to offer a world that daily sends me messages that cause me to question my value and my worth as a Black woman. But the world does not have to be that way, and we can help change it. Knowledge of my strengths saves me every day. Now, depending upon what faith tradition you grew up in, you might be familiar with an old hymn called "Love Lifted Me." Many versions of this hymn have been recorded through the years by gospel, country, blues, and rock singers. But the chorus goes like this. I'll try. Love lifted me. Love lifted me. When nothing else would help, oh, love lifted me. Love. Love. One of the 24 universal character strengths lifts us up every day, making us feel seen and safe and cared for. But I encourage you to think of each of the 24 character strengths as an expression of love, a particular kind of love that our community is in need of every single day. Yes, love has lifted me, but so has creativity, by helping me to see a way when sometimes there appeared to be no way. Honesty has lifted me by sometimes telling me difficult things that I needed to hear. Teamwork has lifted me when I would have failed on my own. Humor has lifted me by making me laugh sometimes when all I could see was reasons to despair. Fairness and people committed to fairness have lifted me and provided me with opportunities that would otherwise have been denied and withheld. I could go on and on about the way I have been lifted by both expressing my own strengths and the way other people have expressed their strengths in my life. And if you think about it for even a second, you can as well. So instead, let me just end by quoting the words of the insightful Marge Piercy, poet. Marge Piercy writes, "Strong is what we make each other. Let's move forward with making each other strong. Let's move forward with becoming strengths keepers for ourselves and for one another. May it be so. Let's be the people who help make it so. Amen, and blessed be."
And then there's a big standing ovation.